Night was thick with the weight of secrets, the kind that slither into the soul and stay there, gnawing quietly until they grow teeth sharp enough to bleed you dry. I never thought betrayal could come wrapped in the face of family, in the eyes of someone who grew up beside me, ate from the same pot, wore my hand-me-downs, and whispered dreams with me under mosquito nets when we were little. But life, I have learned, doesn't always show its cruelty through strangers. Sometimes, it's the people you trust the most who carve you deepest. My name is Adiz, and this is the story of how my own sister stole everything I loved, how she buried me under lies, and how I rose from that grave with vengeance wrapped in silence. If you've ever loved someone so much that their presence felt like air, you'll understand why I clung to Chaik. He wasn't just my fiancé, he was the man who carried my dreams on his back and promised me forever under the orange glow of the village sunset. When he placed that simple gold ring on my finger, I felt as though nothing in the world could break us apart. But I was wrong. Because love isn't only tested by distance or hardship. Sometimes, it's tested by the venom of envy, and mine came in the form of my sister, Amara. She lied. She wove a story so convincing that it tore through my life like wildfire. She told Chaik I had miscarried his child. She told him I was too broken to hold on to love, too weak to build a family. She whispered into his ears when my back was turned, and he listened. He believed her. And when I returned from the hospital bed, clutching my still healing body, I found myself abandoned, not just by the man I loved, but by the sister I would have given my life for. But I am not a woman who crumbles quietly. That night, when the drums beat and the wine gourd circled her wedding feast, I sent her a gift she would never forget. I grew up in Saka, a small town where family ties ran deep, and everyone's business was a story told at the market square. Amara was 2 years younger than me, and from childhood, she had a way of bending attention toward herself. She was beautiful, more beautiful than me, everyone always said. Where my features were sharp and serious, hers were soft, doe-eyed, and full of charm. People often joked that Amara was born for the stage, while I was born for the shadows. But beauty never bothered me. I was the responsible one. I excelled in school, earned a scholarship to university, and while I carried books, Amara carried suitors. By the time I brought Chaik home, I thought she would be happy for me. She smiled at him with her perfect teeth, joked too much in his presence, and sometimes lingered with him longer than I liked, but I told myself I was imagining it. Chaik was everything a woman could want, kind, hardworking, and gentle. He was a civil engineer who had just opened his own firm in Enugu, and he talked often about how we'd build a house together, how he wanted 3 children, how he wanted me by his side at every step. His family loved me, my family loved him, or so I thought. The first fracture came when I realized I was pregnant. I remember the evening well. Rain pattered gently against the zinc roof as I showed Amara the positive test result. Instead of the squeal of joy I expected, she grew strangely quiet. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked, her voice tinged with something sharp. "Of course. Chaik and I are engaged. This only makes us stronger." Her eyes darted away. I hope so." I brushed it off. Amara was always dramatic, I thought. But the day I told Chaik, something in his demeanor changed. He smiled, yes, but there was hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of doubt I couldn't place. Weeks later, I collapsed while preparing food one evening. I was rushed to the hospital, weak and dizzy, my heart hammering against my ribs. The doctor said it was a complication, dangerous but not uncommon in the early stages of pregnancy. I stayed at the hospital for 4 days. And in those 4 days, I noticed something chilling. Amara visited often, but she always found an excuse to be alone with Chaik in the hallway. When I asked Chaik about it, he only shrugged and said, "She's just worried for you." But when I came home, I found silence waiting for me instead of love. Chaik wouldn't meet my eyes. He avoided my touch. And when I confronted him, his words struck me like thunder. "Amara told me about the miscarriage." I froze. "What miscarriage?" His eyes were cold. "Don't lie, Adiz. She said you lost the baby, and you've been hiding it because you're ashamed." My hands trembled as I clutched my stomach. The child was still inside me. I could feel life pulsing within. She lied, I whispered. Why would you believe her over me? But his silence was the answer. A silence heavy with betrayal. The weeks that followed were a blur of agony. Chaik stopped coming around. His mother, who once called me daughter, avoided me. And Amara, oh, Amara. She walked around the house with a smugness that cut deeper than any blade. One evening, I cornered her. Why, Amara? Why would you lie to him? She tilted her head, her lips curling. Because you don't deserve him. You hide behind your books and responsibilities, but men like Chaik need a woman who shines. That woman is me. Her words left me hollow. This was my sister, the girl I had defended countless times, the girl I gave my clothes to, the girl I prayed for. And now she was stripping me of everything I had built. When Chaik finally announced that he was leaving me, that he wanted to start fresh with Amara, I thought I would die. I felt my heart break in real time, each piece falling away until I was just a shell. But the worst part wasn't his betrayal. It was hers. And when the wedding invitations arrived, white envelopes with gold lettering, delivered to my parents' house like an insult, I made a decision. If Amara wanted my life, she could have it. But she would pay a price. The night of the wedding was grand. The air was thick with the sound of drums, laughter, and ululations. Lanterns swung from poles, casting golden light over dancing guests, while the scent of jollof rice and grilled goat filled the air. I did not attend. My absence was noticed, I'm sure, but I wanted it that way. Instead, I prepared a small box. Wrapped in deep blue paper, tied with a red ribbon. Inside, I placed something that would shatter her smile forever. It wasn't poison. It wasn't violence. It was truth, raw, undeniable, and sharp enough to cut through the lies she had built her new life on. The box was delivered to her bridal chamber, just as the festivities reached their peak. And as the drums beat louder and the wine flowed, Amara opened her wedding gift from her sister, the one she thought she had defeated. Her scream echoed into the night. That was only the beginning. Because betrayal may bury a woman, but it also awakens something fierce inside her. And when I rose from the ashes of what my sister did to me, I wasn't the same Adise she thought she knew. The gift I sent her on her wedding night wasn't the end. It was the spark that lit the fire of a reckoning she never saw coming. The sound of Amara's scream cut through the night like a blade through fabric. Guests rushed toward the bridal chamber, confused and alarmed, but I already knew what she had seen. I could almost picture her trembling hands as she peeled away the blue wrapping, untied the ribbon, and lifted the lid. Inside was a simple black notebook, worn, its edges frayed. But it wasn't just any notebook. It was Chaik's. Months before everything collapsed, I had found it tucked away inside his bag. A habit of his, writing down thoughts, sketches of future building projects, even stray emotions he couldn't say out loud. I never told him I'd seen it, but I kept it hidden when I realized Amara was circling him like a hawk. And inside those pages were confessions that Amara never wanted anyone to know. In his own handwriting, Chaik had written about the way Amara flirted with him even while I was asleep in the hospital bed. He wrote of his guilt, his shame, about feeling tempted but knowing it was wrong. He wrote about how he feared telling me, because Adise is too pure, too trusting. If she finds out her sister has eyes for me, it will break her. Every detail was there. His doubts, his fears, his weakness. His words revealed that Amara had pursued him relentlessly, whispering poison about me, telling him I was unstable, telling him he deserved better. He resisted at first, but eventually, her persistence wore him down. And tucked neatly at the back of the notebook was the hospital report, the truth. I had obtained it before I left, stamped and signed by the doctor, confirming my pregnancy was still intact. That my baby was alive. That Amara had lied. I sealed all of it inside that box and sent it as her gift. The wedding feast grew tense. Guests murmured, casting glances at the shuttered chamber doors. When they finally opened, Amara stood pale and trembling, clutching the notebook as though it burned her fingers. Behind her, Chaik's face was thunderous. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice carrying over the music that faltered into silence. I don't know," Amara stammered. "It's lies. All lies." But Chaik snatched the book from her and flipped through it, his own handwriting staring back at him. The guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing scandal. His mother, wide-eyed, pressed a hand to her chest. "You said she miscarried," Chaik said, his voice dangerously low. "You swore to me Adiz had lost the child." I, Amara faltered, her beauty crumbling under the weight of exposure. The truth, so carefully buried, spilled out in front of the very people she had fought to impress. I wasn't there to see it, but word travels fast in small towns. By morning, every market woman and palm wine seller knew about the scene at the wedding. They whispered how Amara had fainted, how Chaik stormed out, how the drummers refused to continue when the bride wept uncontrollably in her chamber. My mother called me, her voice breaking. "Adiz, what have you done?" I closed my eyes. "I only gave her a gift, Mama." She sighed, torn between sorrow and shame. But I felt no regret. For once, Amara had tasted the bitter fruit of her own lies. Still, I knew this was just the beginning. Betrayal like hers doesn't end with one confrontation. It festers, it spreads, it demands more reckoning. And I wasn't finished with her yet. Amara's marriage cracked before it could even begin. But what happens when a sister who thrives on lies finds herself exposed in the cruelest way possible? And what will Chaik do, torn between the truth and the ruins of the wedding he allowed to happen? The real reckoning, the one that would scar us both forever, was yet to come. The days after the wedding felt like a storm had swept through the town and left only broken branches behind. The whispers didn't stop. Everywhere Amara went, people stared at her with thinly veiled pity or mockery. "The girl who stole her sister's man," they muttered at the market. "The bride who was exposed on her wedding night," others laughed under their breath. She had dreamed of being envied, of parading as the perfect bride, but instead she became a cautionary tale. Chaik did not return to the marital home after that night. He left her stranded in her bridal attire, humiliated before both families. And though he didn't come to me either, I knew he was torn apart, caught between shame for his weakness and anger at the truth he had chosen to ignore. It was a week later when Amara appeared at my door. She looked nothing like the radiant bride she once boasted of being. Her wrapper hung loosely, her eyes sunken, her lips dry and cracked. "Are you satisfied now?" she spat, though her voice shook. "You've destroyed me." I looked at her for a long moment. "No, Amara. You destroyed yourself the day you chose lies over blood." Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them. "You think Chaik will come back to you now?" "He won't. You've both ruined each other. And your child." "Stop," I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Don't you dare speak of my child." She fell silent. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me, but of herself, of what she had become. I stepped closer. "I didn't need to lift a finger to ruin you, Amara. All I did was give you the gift of truth. And truth, sister, is heavier than any weapon." 2 weeks later, Chaik came to see me. His face was weary, his once proud shoulders slumped with shame. He stood at the threshold like a stranger, his hands twisting nervously. "Adiz," he began, his voice low, "I don't deserve to be here. But I needed to say, I'm sorry." I said nothing, only watching him. "I let myself be blinded," he continued. "Your sister's words, her lies. I let them take root. I betrayed you when you needed me most." His eyes dropped to my stomach, where the faint swell of pregnancy had begun to show. His voice cracked. "And I betrayed our child." For a brief moment, I felt the old ache of love tug at my chest. But then I remembered the nights of loneliness, the humiliation, the agony of being abandoned when I was most vulnerable. "You're right," I said softly. "You don't deserve to be here." He flinched, but I wasn't finished. "My forgiveness isn't yours to claim. It belongs to this child. If one day they choose to forgive you, then maybe you'll be free. But as for me, I've learned that love built on weak foundations crumbles at the first storm. I will not build again on ruins." He left with tears in his eyes. And I closed the door, not just on him, but on the past. Months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Holding her in my arms, I felt the weight of everything that had been taken from me, and everything I had regained. Strength. Freedom. Purpose. Amara disappeared from town shortly after. Some said she went to Lagos, chasing a new beginning. Others whispered she had fallen into depression. I didn't seek her out. For the first time in my life, I let her carry her own cross. The truth is, betrayal will always scar. But scars don't just remind us of pain, they remind us that we survived. And as I watched my daughter's tiny fingers curl around mine, I knew one thing for certain: the gift I gave Amara on her wedding night wasn't just a notebook. It was the reminder that lies can glitter like gold, but truth always burns brighter. Blood may bind us, but trust is what keeps us whole. When envy poisons love, even sisters can become strangers. But the greatest revenge is not destruction, it's survival, rising above those who tried to bury you.